Hello everybody, welcome back. So yesterday we were rudely interrupted by load shedding. So as I was speaking, there was a switch between the backup power and Eskom bringing back electricity. So yeah, based on yesterday, there was quite a lot of commentary that I got on my inbox, on my WhatsApp. So I figured, let me just speak to everybody again on one platform instead of sending a voice note here and typing here and yeah. So let's get right to it. For those of you who don't know me, again, my name is Lindwen Tibogelang, a self-discovery and development coach. And yesterday's topic, which is to be continued right now, was on why our kids trigger us so much, right? So yesterday I explained, or I was already in the process of explaining, that sometimes our kids trigger us because we have not yet dealt with ourselves, with what has happened to us from a young age or as adults or anything. We have not yet addressed what needs to be addressed at a particular point in time, right? So let's continue. Okay, so sometimes our kids trigger us because we really have not dealt with what we need to deal with. Sometimes we think we have dealt with it, but we have not really dealt with it. So let's make an example with something that is not a very nice topic. Actually, it's not a nice topic at all. It hurts, and I apologize in advance and send unconditional love to those that may be triggered, because even yesterday there was quite a lot of people that were triggered. So sending you love and light and hoping that you heal in the process and you are able to get the necessary help that you need to get. So let's say, for example, you've got a teenage daughter and you as a teenager were raped by your uncle, right? Now, let's say on the day when your uncle raped you, you were wearing a short skirt or a short dress, which does not give him any right whatsoever, by the way, to rape you just because of what you're wearing. But let's say that is what you are wearing. And now every single time you see a teenager of yours wearing a short dress or a short skirt, and teens love short things. Maybe they love their bum shorts and their mini skirts, and you get triggered, right? You are forever shouting at your daughter to say, but why you always dress like this? You know, you are dressing like a prostitute, or people should not dress like this. Why you dress like this? And you're always shouting at your child for dressing like teens dress, simply because you have not had the opportunity to actually deal and process the pain that came with your uncle raping you. Maybe one of the reasons why you could not process that pain was because it's become a family secret. It was swept under the carpet. Nobody talks about it, and you did not get the opportunity to actually dive deep into it and heal from it, right? And sometimes you've been for therapy, you've been for counseling, and it just does not seem to be going away, right? And every time you see your daughter dressed like that, it triggers you out of fear that, what if the same thing happens to my daughter as it happened to me? Because yes, my uncle has died, but he's got a son who has taken after him as one of the main priests in the village. And now what if the same thing happens to my daughter? And you get triggered, right? Sometimes your family maybe goes through cleansing processes that they do when there's trauma in the family, and you are not afforded the opportunity to actually have the same cleansing processes done for you, simply because it's something that is swept under the carpet. And this is why you are being triggered, because you've gone for counseling, you've done therapy, but it seems like it keeps coming back, because healing is also in layers, right? Sometimes something happens to us, we have a trauma event that happens, and because of the nature of the traumatic event, we actually desire that it goes away quickly, right? With the hopes that I'll go for 6 sessions or even 1 session with a therapist, and I just want this thing to go away, né? Only to find that the trauma that you are going through is layered, and it's not just from you, it's from previous people within your bloodline. It might be, some people recognize it as generational curses, other people recognize it as ancestral trauma. So you could find that as you are healing yourself, you are actually not just healing your own trauma, but you are healing the trauma that spreads out through the bloodline, and your child triggers you, right? So every time your child triggers you, ask yourself, why is this child triggering me? What happened or what is happening that results in me being triggered by this child? Sometimes you find you've got a child that eats like crazy, right? They are frying 6 eggs, they are eating 6 slices of bread. I don't know what's the normal in terms of slices of bread, right? But let's say they are eating six slices of bread, and according to you, it's too much. And you are being triggered every time this child is frying 4 eggs or 6 eggs and however many slices of bread. You're just like, you are finishing the food in this house. And you are being triggered maybe because you grew up in an environment where there were 7 of you and you had to share a loaf of bread, and you were the eldest one, and you sacrificed your slice or your half slice of bread for your siblings, right? Now here's you as a parent with a child, and you thought as a child growing up, when I'm a grown up, life is going to be great, I'm going to get what I want, I can eat all the bread that I want. Now here you are, life happens, and you are still in a situation where you need to think about how much bread gets eaten every day. And now here you are again feeling like you still need to once again, over and over and over, sacrifice yourself. And you're like, but when does it end? When does this thing of me sacrificing myself end, right? Sometimes you've got money traumas that you have not yet had the opportunity for whatever reason to deal with, or you have not peeled off the layers that needed to be peeled off. And now here's this child eating a whole lot of food, and it triggers you because this child won't cost that. Like, now I have to spend so much money on food yet again. Now I have to worry about food in my years of being adult again. I never thought I'd have to worry about this. Why is this child doing this to me? And now you are fighting, you are eating a lot, you are doing this, you are doing that. Meanwhile, you are being triggered because this child is almost like being a heat, you know. Think of, let's say you've got nice stew, right? It does not matter how great that stew is, but if you want to eat it with pap, you can never ever ever have your stew and just take mealie meal and put it there and you are having your stew with mealie meal, right? So sometimes we need that heat to actually help us process the traumas or the pains that we've gone through. So if we think of pap, it doesn't matter how good of a chef you are, it doesn't matter how experienced you are, how clever you are, how poor you are, how rich you are. If it's pap, the pap needs mealie meal, you need hot water, you need heat, whether it's on a stove, whether it is with a fire, you need heat. So it doesn't matter how much of water you put into the maize meal and you put it on a stove and you don't switch on the stove and you keep stirring. Every 15 minutes you go, you open the pot, you stir. It'll never become pap, right? Why? Because it needs the heat. So sometimes our kids are there not only to become the mirror through which we look at ourselves and reflect, but to also become that heat that we need in order to initiate our healing process, in order to kickstart us to start healing, sivuthwe, so we can actually start enjoying the things that we are meant to enjoy, right? So a lot of the times our kids trigger us because we have not yet dealt with what we needed to deal with, or we need to dig a little deeper, because sometimes we think, but I've healed. I mean, yes, I grew up poor, but I mean, now I'm working, I'm fine, I've got money, so I'm good, right? And you find that you buying bread, like 10 loaves of bread every day, doesn't really matter to you. It's not gonna break your pocket, but it triggers you when you see your child doing that, right? And you have not yet dealt with your childhood traumas of not having enough food, of having to sacrifice yourself all the time, and you end up being triggered by this child, right? Sometimes, another example I'll give is with kids and weight, right? So sometimes you might find that growing up, you were one of the chubby kids, right? And you had a lot of attention. Grown-ups just wanted to give you all the attention you did not want because you were seen as, adults will say, oh, fresh, right? And even that for you was like, no, but I'm not fresh. I'm a child. Can you just let me be a child? And adults would come and comment about, ooh, where's the oh, fresh young? Ooh, it means you are feeding him or her so well, right? Because in that generation, for parents, it meant if your child is fat, you are feeding your child well. It means you are taking good care of your child. But that's not how you felt as a child. So every time your child eats a lot and they start gaining weight, or they eat a lot and they are not gaining weight, you get triggered because you have not yet processed the trauma that you had as a child of adults keeping you flooded with attention, adults just making unnecessary comments, adults maybe even giving you nicknames, and you are not happy with your weight, right? Or maybe as a child you decided, you know what, because this weight, whenever I'm fat, then I get all the unnecessary attention, and now all of a sudden grown men are commenting about my bum and who wanna or they just make comments about your bum or your boobs because you are bigger than your peers, and you decide, you know what, I don't want weight. And you then make it a point that you do not gain any weight, you remain as thin as you can possibly be. And when your child who has not gone through what you went through when you were a child, right? They eat, they enjoy being a child, and because they've got your genes, they gain weight just like you would have when you were a child. And you get triggered with this child gaining weight. You get triggered with this child eating so much because you fear that, what if this child gains weight and they get too much attention, right? And what will that attention lead to? How do I then protect this child from that unwanted attention that I didn't want as a child and I had to go through because there was no one to actually protect me? Instead, I was being fed with every single thing just so I could be fat, just to prove that my parents are taking care of me, right? So you have not yet processed the trauma that comes with that. The child, they eat ice cream and sweets, which is what kids do, right? Or they eat a whole lot of pap and you get triggered simply because you have not yet dealt with or processed emotions and thoughts and whatever it is you're feeling regarding what is happening around you with your kids, right? And sometimes the kids, they're just being kids, and we get triggered because we have a lot of layers that we have. You are like that onion where the peeling has not happened. You have not removed the layers, right? So yesterday I had a number of people sharing how they got triggered from the discussion we had yesterday and how they reflected, and one of the people, obviously I won't mention names, but one of them made an example with them having put something somewhere and the child broke it, and they got triggered because they were lazy to put that item which they were supposed to sell and have an income from. It was just convenient to put it wherever they put it, right? It was within reach. Toddler grabbed it, they broke it. Now the income has been lost. So now they had to think of other ways of, how do I salvage this and still get an income from it, right? They got triggered from the child, and when they reflected back, it was actually a case of, you know what, actually I'm being triggered by this child because I was lazy. I should not have just put this thing here. I should have put it away from, out of reach from my child so that they do not mess it up, right? So a lot of the times, kids are there to be our mirror, to facilitate our healing process, to help us to reflect on ourselves, because it's not that easy to always see when you need healing. It's not that easy to always see when you need to reflect on yourself. Sometimes you need therapy, sometimes you need counseling, but instead of getting counseling or therapy, you buy a self-help book, or you do affirmations, or you get daily motivational posts and you read your book, and that is not what you require at that time. And the more you do not process what you need to process, the more that your child actually triggers you, and you wonder why this child keeps triggering you. And they're not doing it intentionally, they are just being themselves, they are being a kid. And whenever you get triggered, just ask yourself, why am I being triggered? What is it in this behavior or in this action from this child that I need to take cognizance of and look within myself and see, where do I fit in with this child? Why am I being triggered? Is it because, have I gone through the same thing? Have I gone through anything that has to do with this action? If I have gone through it, have I healed from it, right? And sometimes we see our kids, let's say you've got more than one child, right? So they are siblings and they behave in such a way that triggers you, because the way that they treat each other is how you are treating them. Now you are getting a reflection back of how you are treating your kids, and that is now how they are treating each other. And you see your kids maybe shouting at each other all the time, maybe being impatient with each other, and it triggers you, because the expectation from you as a parent is, my kids, they're all my kids, they grow up under one roof, they should be loving one another, they should be patient with one another, they should be having a great relationship. But you yourself do not have a great relationship with yourself. You yourself do not have a great relationship with any of your kids, right? And them not having a great relationship with each other triggers you, because now you desire that great relationship. And it would have been nice to see that your kids are all lovey-dovey, but you have not dealt with you not having a great relationship with yourself, right? You have not dealt with the fact that you do not have a great relationship with your kids from whatever reasons, be it traumas from your childhood, be it traumas from your adulthood, be it because you just don't know how to have a relationship with yourself, right? Or you could find that your child is forever playing outside, right? And you get triggered because you do not take care of yourself, right? And whenever you see the child playing outside, your inner child is like, I never got to play as a child because I always had to be washing the dishes. I was the firstborn, and because I was the firstborn, I was deputy parent. Now I never really got to be a child. And now here's this child who just loves playing. They are playing all the time, they love playing, and you get triggered because your inner child never got to be a child, right? And when you realize that you never got to actually play as a child because you had to be deputy parent, if you are not changing diapers, you make the bottle for the baby. If you're not making the bottle for the baby, you were fetching the other one from creche. If you are not doing that, you were there fetching water or firewood. So I make reference to a lot of village related living because I come from a rural area myself, right? So you had to do a lot of adult related work instead of playing, right? You got shouted at whenever you had to go out and play, and you never really got to enjoy playing because you knew that as soon as I start playing, then my mother or my father or my grandmother will be calling me to come and change the diaper, right, of my little sister, or to come and bath my little sister, or to come and watch my little sister because my mom has to go and work. Those were the circumstances under which you grew up, right? But now, seeing your child playing all the time, they're forever outside, they're forever playing, it triggers you because your inner child is screaming and saying, but why did I not get to play like this, right? And instead of sometimes joining the child outside and playing with the child to say, you know what, What is so fun? Why is the child having so much fun without me? I'm going to go outside. I'm going to play with the child. We're going to get dirty together. That's why we buy soap. We are going to just play and laugh. And I'm going to let my inner child play with my child, right? And just make my inner child happy as well. You get triggered, right? So reflect back, see what it is that you desire from the action of your child. Why do you want them to stop what they're doing? What is it that is triggering you so much about their action? If they are eating a lot, what is it about them eating a lot that is triggering you so much? What is it about? Is it about the food? Is it about the principle? If it is the principle, what principle is it? Why are you being triggered by your child having such a big appetite? Why are you being triggered by your child playing a lot? Why are you being triggered by your child having an opinion, right? Why are you being triggered by your child asking questions, right? So sometimes you find that you are married to someone and it's not a happy marriage because maybe you did not choose the person, right? Maybe it was an arranged marriage and now you are not happy in that marriage because it's not the love of your life. You would have loved, like with the movies, to fall in love with your Prince Charming or is it Princess Charming, the opposite of Prince Charming? I don't know. Princess Beauty, right? And you do not have that. And you are being triggered whenever your child refuses to do something, whenever your child is able to say, I don't want to eat this. When your child says, I don't want to go and visit Auntie so-and-so. I don't want to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I want to wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning because of reasons X, Y, Z. You get triggered and you think they're being disrespectful because it's triggering that notion of you could not choose for yourself, whatever the circumstances were. And here's this child, they are able to choose, and you are being triggered because you yourself were not in a position to choose. And you still feel like you still do not have a choice in a lot of things that are happening in your life, right? So kids really are there to facilitate our growth, to facilitate our healing, to facilitate us getting to know ourselves better, because sometimes we do not see certain things in ourselves, and when we see it in our kids, then you realize, hang on, this child is actually me. I am this child. And sometimes it's not a pretty image. It's not a nice image because it's not easy to accept our flaws. It's not easy to look at our traumas and get deep into them and actually start that process of healing, because sometimes healing is not nice, guys. Sometimes it really, in fact, most times there's very little, there's like this much healing that I know of that is like, whoopee woo, I'm in heaven, I'm healing, and self-reflection sometimes is also not nice, so yes, that was me. I just wanted to add on to yesterday and to say officially thank you guys for your messages. Thank you for your reflections. Thank you that you actually spent time based on on the live stream yesterday. You spent time with yourselves and you actually you reflected back and you got in touch with yourselves, and some of you actually even had next steps based on yesterday's topic, based on the discussion yesterday's topic on where to from now, so I've realized that I'm being triggered by my kids or by my child when they do XYZ, and I realized that it is because of reasons XYZ. Now, where to from here? So keep reflecting, keep having fun with your kids. Sometimes when your child plays, sometimes don't even reflect. Just go play with them and see what will happen. If you are being irritated that your child is playing in the mud and their clothes are getting dirty, There's soap for that. You can run the washing machine twice. You can, yeah, there's ways to deal with the laundry. Go there, go play with your child, roll in the mud with them, and see how you feel afterwards, and then come back and reflect on how you feel after having rolled in the mud with your toddler or with your child, because they look like they were having fun and you were getting annoyed. So join them and see what happens with that. So thank you so much for joining, and as I've mentioned, I'm still on the teens mode. So that was me, and not really teens mode, but rather kids mode. So I seem to be on a kids mode this time around. So we are still doing our workshop next week for teens, where we will be letting the teens step into themselves and also get some career coaching. So let me know if you want to sign them up for that. However, if you are not signing them up, but you want help reflecting on yourself because your child is just triggering you too much, give me a shout. That's why I'm here. So have a lovely day. Thank you for joining. Mwah.